The story begins at a high school research club. Iori and Inaba are teasing Taichi when suddenly Aoki and Yui enter the room with serious expressions on their faces. When Inaba asks them what's wrong, they give a shocking answer. They believe that last night they switched bodies with each other. Inaba thinks the switch may have happened because they had the same dream, but she's proven wrong when Taichi switches bodies with his crush Iori. Taichi gets scared. Iori controls his body and drags him back to the club room where they try to tell Inaba what's going on. Inaba doesn't believe them. After asking some very private questions, she realizes they're telling the truth. While the situation is wild, they try to forget about it after returning back to their own bodies. Inaba asks them to be careful since something like this might happen again. Her intuition is correct. The next day, Taichi and Iori find out that 3 of their other friends switched bodies on the way to school. This insane situation causes them to miss classes and get a warning from their homeroom teacher, Goto. They try to figure out why the hell this is happening. Their questions are finally answered when Goto enters the club room and starts speaking strangely. The friends find out that an entity known as Balloon Vine has taken over Goto's body. Balloon Vine tells them that he is the one making them switch bodies. He doesn't explain why he's doing it and tells them to keep it a secret from the rest of the world. Inaba and Yui don't like this vague explanation and try to make him talk more. It soon becomes very clear that Balloon Vine is very strong and you shouldn't mess with him. After realizing they can't escape this new reality, Inaba sets up some rules to make sure they don't do anything stupid after switching bodies. Inaba also asks Taichi to ask Iori out. She believes that Iori is in a bad place in her life because of her weird family situation, and she wants Taichi to be there for her. Taichi has a very selfless personality, so he agrees to look after Iori. The next morning, Taichi and Aoki are goofing around while they are in Yui and Inaba's bodies, and they get caught by the girls. While Inaba is grilling them, Taichi learns that Yui's body starts shaking whenever she's close to a man. When he asks her why that happens, she just runs out of the room. This clearly disturbs him, and he gets even more worried when he finds Yui crying after another body-switching incident. The two of them meet up in the park that night, where he forces Yui to explain what's wrong. This is when Yui shares that she has a fear of men because she was assaulted by one a few years ago. This revelation makes Taichi really sad. He didn't realize how much his friend has been suffering. He tells her that he's always there for her before showing her how to take a man down with just one kick between his legs. This demonstration leaves him in a lot of pain, but he forgets about it the next morning. Yui says she feels much better after talking to him. While Yui seems to be doing better, Inaba ends up passing out in Taichi's arms in school. Her friends are worried about her. She claims she just blacked out due to exhaustion. While she says that she's okay now, Taichi and Iori decide to escort her back to her house just to be safe. On their way, Taichi explains how he talked to Yui about her fears. After listening to his story, Inaba asks Taichi to listen to Iori as well. Iori doesn't want to talk, but she doesn't want to hurt Taichi's feelings, so that evening, she opens up to him. She explains how she had a violent stepdad and had to change her personality to protect herself from his wrath. She says that she has developed this strange habit of changing her personality depending on who she's talking to. Because of this, she believes she has become hollow, which makes her sad. Taichi tries to assure her that it's normal, but Iori doesn't believe that. Taichi is worried for her, but she isn't the only one who's suffering. The next morning, he finds out that Inaba still feels sick. He finally decides to ask her what's wrong, and she tells him about her trust issues. She shares how she is unable to trust even her friends, and because of this body swapping phenomena, she is always worried that someone might misuse her body. This anxiety is killing her, but she also feels horrible for not trusting her friends. Taichi understands her and asks her to share how she feels with her other friends as well. Inaba doesn't want to do that, so Taichi says that if she shares her problems with others, he'll tell her his dark secret. Inaba is really curious, so she agrees, and Taichi shares how he has had fantasies about every girl in their club. While his confession is a little creepy, it makes Inaba laugh. That afternoon, she finally shares her fears with others, and to her surprise, they accept her however she is. After this admission, Inaba feels a lot happier, and she thanks Taichi by telling him that she has fantasized about him as well. With Inaba's troubles behind her, Taichi is now focused on helping Iori. One morning, when Iori runs out of the club room, Taichi goes after her. He once again tells her that it's okay to have a flexible personality. He He also finally musters up the courage and confesses his feelings for her. This confession surprises Iori, who realizes how much Taichi loves her. But before she can respond to his feelings, Balloon Vine takes over her body and jumps into the river while Taichi watches in shock. Iori is immediately taken to the hospital where her friends are waiting anxiously. This is when Balloon Vine shows up in Goto's body and makes a haunting revelation. He says Iori's body will die in half an hour and they have to decide whose soul will die with that body. He even allows them to switch bodies at will while they're making their decision. As usual, Taichi immediately agrees to sacrifice himself to save Iori, but Inaba reminds him that Iori won't accept this crazy sacrifice. Eventually, they allow Iori to enter their bodies and tell her what's going on. She makes it clear that she doesn't want anyone to die in her place. While talking to Taichi through Inaba's body, she tells him that she also loves him. She ends this conversation after giving him a goodbye kiss. When their time's up, the friends tell Balloon Vine that Iori will die with her body. This answer shocks Balloon Vine, and he finally reveals that it was just a test and Iori is actually okay. The friends are speechless, but they are also extremely happy after hearing that. And only a couple of days later, Iori is back at the club where her friends throw a party to welcome her. After this incident, they stopped swapping bodies, and the friends try to put all of this behind them. But Balloon Vine isn't done with them yet. One afternoon, Taichi is helping Inaba write an article when out of nowhere, she takes off her clothes and tries to make out with him. She stops when Yui and Aoki get there, but there's something wrong with Yui too, because she gets really mad and breaks the table with a karate chop. The whole incident is strange, but things get weirder when the next morning, Taichi learns that Yui beat the shit out of a couple of delinquents and got arrested by the police. Aoki tried to save her, but he got arrested as well. By now, Taichi is really confused about what's going on, but Balloon Vine shows up once again and explains that from now on, their hidden desires will get unleashed on their own. He leaves after giving this vague explanation, and Taichi returns home to wonder how to deal with this new problem. That night, he gets a call from Iori, who says that even though she still loves him, she doesn't think it's a good time to start dating. Taichi agrees with her, which makes her happy, but it leaves a big hole in his heart. The next morning, he fails to get up on time because of his desire to sleep. Iori also gets in trouble when she suddenly screams during class. Luckily, Aoki is back, and he claims that Yui beat up those boys because they were being rough with some girls. The whole thing has been hard on Yui, who hasn't even come to school. Still, her friends don't want to abandon her, so after school, they go to her house and force their way in. They ask Yui why she doesn't want to leave her room, and she says that she doesn't want to hurt anyone again like she hurt those boys. While Taichi and Iori are comforting her, Inaba loses her cool, and her desire to be mad at Yui gets unleashed. She says some mean things which only make the situation worse, but she isn't the only one getting mad at others. Iori, who's known for being extremely kind, gets really angry at another girl and makes a scene. Taichi also loses his shit when he learns that Inaba doesn't want to come to the club because she's scared of making things worse because of her dark desires. By this point, everyone in the Cultural Research Club is at a breaking point. Things are getting so bad that Taichi and Aoki get into a meaningless argument, and Taichi ends up pushing Iori. He feels horrible about hurting the person he loves and realizes why Yui and Inaba don't want to come to school. He also starts skipping the club and tries to keep his distance. Meanwhile, Iori gets mad at Inaba for being so cold towards her. The whole class is worried about these friends, so the class president Fujishima decides to put Taichi, Inaba, and Iori in the same group for the upcoming class trip. Taichi also receives some useful advice from Goto, who says that it's okay for friends to hurt each other sometimes. The most important thing is that they apologize later on and try to talk things out. Taichi takes this advice to heart, and the next day apologizes to Iori for skipping club. He also makes up with Aoki, who feels bad for fighting with his best friend. The two of them immediately go to Yui's place and promise that they will stop her if she tries to hurt anyone again. They give her some much needed confidence, and she agrees to come back to school. While the four of them are back at the club, Inaba is still missing. That night, she receives a visit from Balloon Vine, who tells her to stop ignoring her friends or he'll shake things up by doing something crazy, just like earlier when he made Iori jump into the river. He also tells her to stop hiding her feelings because it will only make her a stranger to her four precious friends. After this warning from Balloon Vine, Inaba joins Taichi and others for the school trip. She's trying to act normal but feels nervous around Taichi. They are making their own food on this trip, and Inaba Inaba cuts herself while chopping some vegetables. Taichi grabs her hand to put bandage on it, but Inaba gets mad and runs off. Later on, Iori sees her kissing her hand and figures out that Inaba has feelings for Taichi. She tries to talk to Inaba, who takes off into the woods. Iori eventually catches up to her and asks her why she's been hiding her feelings for Taichi. Inaba starts crying and explains that this club means the world to her. She was afraid that by sharing her feelings, she can ruin all of her friendships. Her logic makes Iori mad. She says that she will always stay her friend, no matter who Inaba likes. She also encourages Inaba to confess her feelings to release her anxiety. Inaba is feeling happy after seeing Iori's response, but this happiness is ruined when Balloon Vine takes over Iori's body. He says that this desire unleashing phenomenon is now over, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, Taichi got hurt after he fell. This news shocks Inaba, who runs off to see Taichi. She's fearing the worst, but it turns out that Taichi just fell from a tree and is fine. After seeing that he's okay, Inaba breaks down and cries her heart out. After coming back from the trip, she tells Taichi that she loves him. She also gives him a kiss and promises to win over his heart. And with this, it seems like all of their troubles are finally over. But just when things start getting back to normal, Iori and Yui suddenly turn into little kids. This freak incident shocks their 3 other friends. After some investigation, Inaba calls this phenomenon time regression and figures out that this is another challenge where everyone other than Taichi will turn into their younger selves between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. Her theory is correct, and the girls return to their normal selves at exactly 5 o'clock. Since this phenomenon is much harder to hide, Inaba asks everyone to spend these 5 hours with her in an empty building near her house. That night, Taichi goes home to find out that his sister's body is taken over by a being called the Second, who is behind the time regression. The Second says that he wants Taichi to help out his friends, but keep his mouth shut about the Second. Taichi agrees to follow this rule, and the next day, they meet up at the building, where Inaba and Aoki turn into kids. Iori and Yui are taking care of them when Aoki starts saying that Yui is actually Nana's sister. After returning to his normal self, he explains that Nana is actually his ex-girlfriend who really looked like Yui. His memories from that period confuse him, and he wonders if he even loves Yui. While Aoki is trying to understand his own feelings, Yui meets her former rival, who gets mad at her for giving up on karate. Yui feels bad about giving up on her dream of becoming a karate champion, and now she doesn't even have Aoki at her side because he thinks he might not love her. He wants to know if he loves Yui for who she is, or if he just likes her because she looks like his ex-lover. To get to the answer of this question, he goes to meet Nana, who lives in a different city. Taichi is accompanying him, and they meet Nana outside her home. Aoki immediately realizes that he doesn't love Nana anymore, and his heart only belongs to Yui. So he catches the very next bus and runs to tell Yui that she is the only one for him. His confession is enough to bring Yui out of her slump, and she decides to chase her dreams once again so that she can become worthy of being with Aoki. Their friends are really happy for them, but Taichi slips up and ends up telling Inaba about the Second. As soon as he breaks the rule, the Second takes over Iori's body and tells them that they will now be experiencing time regression at random moments. This is a big problem because now they can't even go home. What's worse is that even Taichi has started experiencing this crazy phenomenon. All of them try to make excuses to their family members and stay hidden in the building for a few nights. But Iori wants to go home. She tells them that her violent stepdad is back and that if she doesn't go home, he'll hurt her mother. Her friends want to help her, but she asks them to stay out of it. This is when Taichi snaps and makes her realize that she is not a lonely child anymore. Now she has friends and she can rely on them. These words mean a lot to Iori, who accepts the help, and they all start running to save her mother. However, as soon as they get to her home, Iori turns into a child. Taichi has to grab her and get out of there before her stepfather sees her. He and Inaba are waiting for Iori to turn back when Balloon Vine gets there and Iori turns to normal. He apologizes for the trouble caused by the Second, and he also says that they won't experience time regression ever again. With this out of the way, they run over to Iori's house, but to their surprise, her mom has already thrown her stepdad out of the house. She tells Iori that she doesn't have to worry about that man anymore. With Iori's problems coming to an end, the friends try to enjoy the rest of their holidays, and on the first day back to school, Iori wonders if she loves Taichi or if that was just a misunderstanding.